In October 2024, we embarked on our first ever transatlantic cruise, 12 nights from Florida to Portugal. We departed from Port Canaveral on Royal Caribbean's Adventure of the Seas. Boarding was so quick, we didn't even take pictures. Our stateroom was on Deck 2 midship. Our third crew this year, it was the smallest cabin we'd had so far. Links are in the description for the other 2 cruises. There wasn't even room to put our suitcases under the beds. The porthole window fortunately provided better visibility than we feared. The TV channel selection wasn't extensive, but it was decent, including some live US sports and European football. And we also played video files from a USB stick. The upper deck's open-air activities had limited availability because of the variable weather of the open sea. And even on sunny days, the wind could make them very difficult. The partially open, adults-only solarium was quieter and more sheltered from wind and weather, definitely more our style. Of course, there was a gym and plenty of stairs to climb. The Royal Promenade on Deck 5 is the central focus of most Royal Caribbean ships, with a mix of dining, shopping, and bars. The Imperial Lounge was the most interesting bar, with an Imperial Chinese theme. So we departed Canaveral, sailing east overnight to the Bahamas, docking at Royal Caribbean's private island, CocoCay, for their heavily promoted perfect day at CocoCay. A second ship was docked next to us. Allure of the Seas, one of the largest cruise ships in the world. Dwarfing our ship, it has nearly double the capacity. The first impression was theme park, and that was the second and third impressions. But if you want to be by the beach instead of by the pool, especially before a long stretch of Atlantic Ocean, this is a good spot. So after our perfect day, we continued east with nothing but open ocean for the next 7 straight days. This was our biggest concern about a transoceanic cruise, but we shouldn't have worried. Even for introvert non-joiners like us, there was plenty to do. There were a variety of shows in the main theater, an unexpected treat was an actor pair who portrayed the lives of U.S. presidents. We saw Grant and Taft, both very good. And the ice skating was great. The last ever aboard this ship, as after this cruise it went into dry dock for much needed upgrades and refits, removing the ice rink. One thing that was a concern was the food. Compared to our celebrity and princess cruises, it was lower quality and consistency. And after the 5th day at sea, freshness became an issue. But the service was always fantastic and entertaining. The weather during our sea days was rough as expected. The pools were closed half the time, but decks were usually open for walking. On October 30th, day 6 of the cruise, we crossed the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, the longest mountain range in the world. And Halloween was coming, and many passengers were ready. A cruise Facebook group had organized a costume event based on a 1970s TV sitcom character, and the turnout was incredible. Ship entertainers pumped up the mood with a festive parade down the Royal Promenade. On Halloween Day, weather was some of the worst of the cruise, but the ship was ready for a party. Izumi, the ship's Japanese restaurant, offered a Halloween discount on their sushi making class where you get to eat your classwork. Avic loved it and might have a future at Royal Caribbean. In the evening, passenger costumes were on display. Some were really impressive, and even we joined the fun. And one of the highlights of the cruise was the Halloween costume parade. The next couple days were calmer seas, and Avic got her surf and turf dinner with a slice of birthday cake. The morning of day 10, we saw our first sight of land in nearly 8 days, docking in Tenerife in the Canary Islands of Spain. The islands were formed from volcanic eruptions emerging from the sea like the Hawaiian Islands, though at about 20 million years old, they are 4 times as old as Kauai, the oldest Hawaiian island. We were glad to be back on land, and glad to see the ship being serviced and restocked with fresh fruit and vegetables. Inhabited for over 2,000 years, including by the Romans, the islands were rediscovered by Europe in the 14th century, and conquered by Spain by 1405, wiping out the previous inhabitants. They have been an autonomous community of Spain since 1982, and ferries connect the islands with each other and with mainland Spain. We were there on a Sunday, and many locals were out and about, though most shops were closed. Christmas lights were up all over town, but Halloween wasn't even over yet. To conclude our time in town, we stopped at a local cafe to sample the local wine. Overnight, we moved to Lanzarote, also in the Canaries. Not as large a port as Tenerife, it felt much busier when we were there. I paid for a bus into town, and Avic went on an island bus tour, where the island's volcanic landscape was on full display, especially in Timanfaya National Park. Black basalt rock dominates most of the terrain, and stretches of red rock have higher iron content. She also visited Bodega La Heria, an organic vineyard where the vines are planted low to the ground to shield them from the island's constant trade winds. A similar solution to what we saw in Santorini in Greece. My trip into town wasn't worth the $16, as they dropped us off on the other side, and not much closer than simply walking from the boat. And the walk back to the boat was the most interesting part. Passing by a memorial and sections of the 18th century Spanish fortress, part of which is now privately owned and run as a restaurant cum art museum. It was a very nice coastal trail, though with some construction zones. About a 40-minute walk from the center of town, it was almost exactly the round trip from my original drop-off. One of the other cruise ships had scooters and bicycles, a much better option. The sun set over Lanzarote, and we had one more sea day to go. It was a beautiful day, and the crew had one last event planned up top, a parade of nations. The 1,200 members represented 67 countries. The top three contingents were India, Indonesia, and on top, with over 400 members, the Philippines. And just like that, after 12 nights aboard, we sailed into Lisbon, Portugal in a thick pea soup. We started this cruise with some major concerns, but we thoroughly enjoyed our first Atlantic water crossing and are in the process of selecting a return cruise for the next year.